to talk about importing into your Lightroom catalog. Where we left off last time, we open this up and you can see we have three folders. One is our photos folder, and which we've actually added some more job folders to. Each one of these is a job folder, remember? And then we also added a classroom materials folder, and you can see here I got some materials from two different classes, some support materials there. And then also I have the catalog, which we created last time. Now remember, the catalog is this one right here. I even highlighted it with a little red tag for the Mac people. This won't translate into the PC, unfortunately. This is just something that you can only see in the Mac. So that's where we are. We're all set to go. We're all ready to import the files. One more time, when we talk about importing, the images will always reside here in the job folders in the photos. When we talk about importing, all we're doing is we're linking this catalog to the photos that are in that folder. So that means that this folder has to stay in the same position with photos. These images have to stay in the same position in this folder. You can't move them around, you can't do anything. And in fact, it's basically kind of a set it and forget it type situation. Once you transfer the files over into the job folders inside your photos folder, that's it. You don't move them. Everything's going to happen in Lightroom. Okay, so Lightroom is how we are going to get to our photos from here on in. You can't double click on these files. They won't open in Lightroom where they're at right now. What you need to do is you need to double click on the catalog to look into them. Now, since nothing's linked right now, when we open up our catalog like this and we double click on it, never go down here. This is a no-no. Don't want to do that anymore. From here on in, we just double click on the catalog, and the catalog is always the lrcat dot extension. So double click and Lightroom will open up. Now this is where you see that there's nothing here. So we need to actually import in and, of course, link the catalog with the photos. The problem with the interface on Lightroom is it's a little bit clunky. So that's why you have an Indian guy like me to help you find where everything's at. And the most important thing is this area down here where it says import. You'd think the import would be up here, because these are important. Why wouldn't import be important? Why shouldn't import be up here? But it's not. It's way down here. So you're going to get used to that after a while. But import is always this down in the lower left-hand corner. So let's click on import once. And then you get a import dialog box that looks almost like what you just saw. Now, what happens is that you need to select the source. Now, this is one of the problems we have when we, let me tell you a problem that there usually is when people try to add or try to import files. You see how you have this copy as DNG, copy and move, and add. The only one you want to do is add because you've already copied your files over. If you still have your camera card attached to the computer, Lightroom is going to be very, very, very aggressive at trying to look inside your camera card. So that means that if you see copy or copy as DNG, any of those things, if it does that by default, that means that you haven't disconnected your card. So if you see any of these two, disconnect the card right away. If it won't let you do anything else, that's because you've got the card attached to the computer. After you've transferred the files over, you've got to remove the card. Now, selecting the source. The source is pretty simple, but that seems to be one of those areas that a lot of people have a hard time. If you click over to the source, you're going to find that you're going to have several volumes underneath here. Now, I have one as the Macintosh hard drive. That's what the computer is. There's another one sometimes, mobile backups or mobile files. That's for a session later on. But more importantly, remember JH archive? That's the archive that's the volume that we created on the desktop. So if I click this caret down, you'll see that you have all three of your folders there, right? So there they are. But we don't want to go into catalog because there's nothing there. And you don't want to go into class materials because that's off limits. We're not really using that. So all we want to do is go into photos. That's it. Now here is exercise 1. Let's import this. We'll click on this one. And inside here you can see all of the photographs that I had for exercise 1 that I brought over. These are some vacation pictures. And and then at this point, once you've got this located, and you just want to highlight that job folder. This is why making job folders is so important. So you can have a unique name, a unique date. They're in order. That the order translates across all operating systems, even this operating system of Lightroom, so that it looks just like that. And the only thing that you need to see is add. Even though you can see all these other things could be highlighted, you only want add. The reason for add is because you've already copied these into your archive. They're secure. You've put them to a place where you want them to be. You created the folders so you know exactly what's going to go on. If for some reason they want to copy over or move, what's going to happen is Lightroom's going to create the folders for you, and you're not going to like it. You're just not going to like it. It's the worst thing that could possibly happen. And for those of you who have already tried doing Lightroom, your folder structure was created probably by Lightroom, and that's why you couldn't find your files. So the most important thing, if you don't learn anything else in this class, is never copy anything over. Just use add at this point. Now there's ways in which you could use copy, but at this point, no one's comfortable with their catalog at this point to do anything other than what I just told them. Your only thing you're going to do is add. Now everything that's checked here is going to be imported, and that's what is bound to happen. Over here we want to talk about file handling. Under the build previews, we want you to build the previews at 1-to-1 and do all of that development for us, because when you hand this in for homework, I don't want to have to be building previews for you. I want to have them all built and be done with. So it needs to be built at 1-to-1. Later on in your career, not this class, but later on, you might want to use some of the other things like standard or embedded with archive minimal. Minimal and sidecar is what's used the most, and standard. But I'm sorry, minimal and standard is what's used the most. But 1-to-1 for this class is really going to help us instructors who are actually grading your work. And believe me, you want to make the instructors nice and happy when it comes to grading your work. The next thing is don't want to import any suspected duplicates. Disregard building smart previews at this point, unless you want to experiment with that, but don't do it now. Do it later. Add to collection, we'll talk about that more later. That's a new feature in Lightroom 6. Development settings, they always should be none. At this point, we don't want you to do any development as you're importing them in. As you can see, there's all sorts of ways you could bring things in, but that's not what we want to do. These presets should be none as far as your development. Now, the metadata, on the other hand, is something different. On the metadata, what you want to do is you want to create a new preset. And what we're going to do is we're going to call it copyright. Copyright. Copy. Now, you know what? Let's do it this way. Let's give it the name afterwards. So let's go down here to the bottom here and put in the copyright. Now what we're going to do, the copyright has to go in exactly this way. The first thing is you need to say that it's going to be copyrighted. That's just a toggle switch that if you did nothing else indicates that you have some sort of copyright. The next thing you want to do is you want to put your name. So in my case it's John Hesketh, JOHNHESKETH with spaces. And then you want to make a copyright symbol. Now a copyright symbol is real simple. You hold down the Option key and then hit G and you get a copyright symbol just like that. And after that goes 2015. That's this year. You copyright everything in the year in which you actually create it or you determine to copyright it, and it will be legal. At this point, you have guaranteed yourself a day in court. You can actually defend all your work electronically using this. And anything that's aware of copyright will actually show that that's what it is. Now, you need to put a threatening message in here, so it's all rights reserved. And then I usually put a copyright info for URL. The URL for me would be http www.johnhesketh.com. Okay, and that's what you need to put in. Now you could actually put an email address in there if you wanted to. That would be fine. Any way in which they can actually contact you is the most important way of doing that. And that's what you need in order to do this. Now what you want to do is name this preset, and what I usually do is name it something really simple like J. Hesketh, and then I'll put a copyright symbol, that's option G, and then 2015. Now, anytime I see this name will appear in my Lightroom interface. So I know that everything's going to be copyrighted for 2015. So I'll then create one for 2016, 2014, depending on what's necessary as we go along. So at this point, we want to create it like that. And now we have a metadata preset in here, in addition to having none, but I can go back to this one here, and I can copyright all my imports like that. All right, so at this point I need to pause. We're back. We haven't imported yet, but I need to make one small mention about keywording. Keywording, and very simple, I'm sure we'll go over this again in more detail, but when you're importing, you want to keyword in things that are important to the images or to the actual download that you're doing. Now, these are general keywords, not specific keywords. Like some of these pictures have my wife Peggy in them, some of them don't, so I can't put Peggy in this. But I can put in the event, which was Squaw Valley. Got to spell it. And then I can put a colon, or not colon, a comma. The reason why you put a comma there is now all of this is one keyword. Squaw Valley is one keyword, not squaw and not valley. The next one is going to be book. I'm going to put down book because she's an author, and this had to do with books. And then after that, I'm going to put in Telling the Bees, because that's her latest novel, and that was why she was there at that conference. The other part of it is that this was, let's see, what else there was about this? This was a vacation. It was a vacation. All right, you don't want to be real specific. And then the other thing is, let's say writers. Whoops, writer. Spell it right. All right, so right there I've got 5 keywords that kind of say what was actually happening to this. They're generic. They don't mean anything specific to any one of these images, but they do refer to each individual images. Specific keywords can be put in later on. All right, so all of these, along with the copyright, will be inserted into this image these images at this time, at the point at which they get imported. That's very important. This is the skill set you need to learn. All right, here we go. So we're done with that. So that means the import now has moved from this side to the button is now over here, and we can actually say let's import. So everything that's been checked is going to be imported. There it goes. Now what happens is that you can see here as the job is progressing, it's creating the previews. And then it should switch over to something else, because looks like we've all imported everything. Okay, it's all done. That's great. That was short. And so in the import process, you can see here this is now the folder, and it's all set to go. Does that make sense? All right, so we've imported our first exercise in our first folder, and we can continue on and do the same thing for other ones. We just say import, and then we go back, go to the next one, this one, make sure this is all set, that's all set, put some keywords in there, and then click import, and you keep going through each folder until you're done. All right, that's how it works. And so the only way to get out of Lightroom is you have to quit Lightroom. You can't just like put it off to the side. So what we're going to do is quit Lightroom. Be all squared away and all done. All right. So you can see here, there's nothing. The images don't look any different, but they do. But you can know that they are actually linked. This catalog is linked now to this lab exposure, or this folder called 150907 Lab Exercise 1. And then we do this, repeat the same thing over and over for each one of these folders. And that's how you build your catalog. All right? That makes sense? All right. Oops.